Hi, so I'm here with Paulo the Freak Almeida from 5% Nutrition. Welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Paulo Almeida. Basically got the nickname The Freak because, I just started training 5 years ago and, my strength got grew up pretty fast, blew up pretty fast. I blew up pretty fast. So my friends basically gave me the name The Freak, and I basically stuck with that ever since. And as you can see, in some of the photos, as everybody's saying, the name suits the person. So
Definitely.
yeah, and so basically, long story short, I got into weight training when I was in high school and stuff, and I was really hooked into it, like most kids are, and until about probably from about the age of like 14, 15 till about 19, and then like how I like to tell people, life happened basically, and I just went on other journeys and basically didn't go step into a gym for about 14 years. I was playing a little bit of soccer and stuff like that, and basically I kind of kept in shape, but nothing enough, obviously, to stimulate the muscle or grow anything like that.
Yeah.
And then, 5 years ago, I went on a cruise with my family, and you're stuck on the ship for about a week, so you start getting kind of bored. And I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go to the gym. So went in the gym, basically went in there, and got that pump going again, and then I was hooked ever since, and the rest is history.
What would you say are your best accomplishments to date in the sport?
Well, I don't have too many titles right now, but I won the British Columbia Provincials last year and got the overall winner there. That's a local show in Canada. It's a provincial show, so it would be like a regional or state show in the U.S. And then I went from there to the Canadian Nationals last year, September, where I placed third. The previous years before, I did the Nationals as well, but I came like ninth and 10th. But I wasn't really properly conditioned at that point. I've always had the size, but conditioning's always been a bit of a problem. But finally, last year, I hooked up with a good coach and now a friend of mine who's helping me through this preparation. And we finally brought in the best package, and I came in third, and could have went either way. The sports, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just in the middle of my next preparation for the Canadian Nationals. I'm doing the best I can. I had a really great, productive off season, the best off season I've ever had. I got up to about 295 while maintaining a very staying pretty lean. My goal was to stay very lean this year. Last year I got a little sloppy, because of diet and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really more tight on my diet and stuff like that this year. And my body type is kind of like that. I need to really eat really clean, or I can gain fat pretty easy, unlike some people. And so now I'm just sitting currently 6.5 weeks out of Canadian Nationals, which is in July 11th. I'm going to do the best I can, bring the best package that I've brought yet. I'll be 10 pounds heavier than my last Nationals, which I was at 245, so I should be coming in no lighter than 255. But, I'm not putting a weight on it. Conditioning is number one for me, but I really can't see that coming in lower than that because right now I'm sitting at about 272 first thing in the morning with about 6.5 weeks to go. So, and my conditioning's pretty on point. I should be ready in about 4 weeks. And hopefully, if it all goes well there and I can obtain my pro card there, then I'll be ready basically to hit the pro stage right away. And my dream is right now is hopefully my first show would be actually in my hometown of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. They just received their first pro show. They were awarded their first pro show this year. So that's 2 weeks after Nationals. So that would be a dream of mine, would be for my first pro show to be in my hometown. So, and I'd already be in good condition from doing the Nationals. So that's my dream right now. And that's pretty much it.
Do you think you'd be ready to step straight on the pro stage?
Oh yeah, pretty much. Oh yeah. A lot of guys, I'm kind of different than a lot of guys because a lot of guys start younger, right? And they obtain their pro cards when they're at a younger age, so they haven't really developed the size quite there. Um, Even though starting at a later age, I only started training at the age of 34. I'm 39 now. I did grow pretty fast, so the size is pretty much already there. But most guys that are obtaining their pro cards are kind of young right now. They're getting them at, anywhere from around like 220 pounds, to 230, which is still not quite big enough to hit the pro stage level when most of the guys are, 250 plus. So at me at 255, almost 260 on stage shredded, I'm still, I'm still going to keep growing. I'm still improving. 5 years in this sport is nothing. And the way I make improvements, I'm making improvements like really fast. I've already put on 10 pounds since my last show in September, which is only 7 months. So, I really have a lot of improving still to go.
Yeah, you said you've only been training 5 or so years, so you can still make the quick.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I still feel like I'm making really good gains and just getting better quality. And my training has gotten better over the years and stuff like that too. And my philosophy, and I'm sure you're gonna probably ask me this anyways, like what's my main training philosophy? Well, my main training philosophy, which has always been there, my diet's never been the best, and even my training techniques have never been the best. But the one thing that's always been there from start to finish, what I tell people, is my training intensity. It's always been there. Every time I go to the gym, I like how I tell people, I go there, I want to kill it. I go in my zone. I'm in there. I'm not playing with my phone. It's time to work. It's time. I'm always trying to beat my previous lifts from the week before. Of course, over time, you're going to get to a point where you can't keep beating those lifts, or else we'd be, benching 1,000 pounds. You know what I mean? But I'm always trying to push, always going to failure. I'm always trying to, beat my last week by a rep or even 10 pounds. Anything that's basically progression, and that's basically the mentality that has always been there. And now you throw in the fact that now I know how to eat better, and my training techniques are way better. Where I'm going more for feel now, mind muscle connection. I know what's working, what's not. Put that together with the training intensity. Sky's the limit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you said you would just recently started working with a coach.
It's no one well known. It's just a local guy from where I'm from Vancouver. He actually, the funny story is he actually beat me in 2013 at that same show. He beat me at that show, and I ended up actually hiring him right after the show because he always comes in good condition. He brings in his athletes in great condition. He's won a lot of local amateur overall awards and stuff like that too. So how they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So literally, I basically hired him after that show, and he brought me into the best condition up to date, and I'm still working with him currently. And we're just trying to get the show, and he's actually doing the same show as well, but he's doing the Masters.
All right, yeah. Well, it's definitely working. I've just seen your recent photos that you put up a couple of days ago of 7 weeks out.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Showing the photos, pictures. I haven't seen any negative comments in your pictures whatsoever. I was wondering what you would pick as your weaknesses in your physique, like what you need to improve on in your eyes.
Well, in my eyes, there's always, things to bring up. But for me, mainly, it's probably, and what I do actually get comments on this, is mainly my calves. And like I tell people, if there's any body part that's going to be weak, hey, I'll take that,
Yeah.
I think genetically, it's just one of those that just don't grow for me. Maybe I didn't hit them hard enough, when I got back into training. But, when I got back into training, I never thought about just bodybuilding. It was just about lifting. So I never really trained my calves as much. I'm trying to bring them up now, but they're still a part that, they don't respond as well. Not like my arms, which are pretty freaky and everything else. But the calves, yeah, they just, that's probably the one thing I get the most comments on is my calves. So like I said, if there's one body part I'll take, it's that. A little bit, also some back thickness. Like when I hit my rear lat spread, I don't get enough popping, enough thickness in the middle back there, and enough detail. I think that might be just something that comes over time. Also, it's hard to see in a lot of my pictures because I have a huge back tattoo, which probably hides a lot of details, and I get that covered up now when I do my shows. Unfortunately, I got that tattoo before I got into bodybuilding, so I'm kind of stuck with it and kind of work with it. It does distract a lot from all the lines in the back and stuff like that. But other than that, it pretty much, like I said, number one would be calves. Number two would be back thickness, which I'm still trying to work on a lot. And like I said, when I first got into this, you're just training mostly, a lot of chest, a lot of arms, and some back, but you're not really focusing on certain parts. So now I've been really focusing more on my back thickness, hitting it from different ways, more squeezing, contracting. So it has been definitely getting better, and probably won't be able to really tell how it looks until I really dry up and get it covered up for my show.
Yeah. Well, calves seem to be the main issue with bodybuilders and weakness spots.
Yeah, I think honestly, a lot of it's just genetic. Just where it attaches and stuff like that too. Like there's a lot of big boys that have small calves, and I really don't think it's because they don't train them. To be honest, I really don't. I just think genetically, it's just the way it is, and for me, that's the way it is as well. So it's funny because you see some guys that like aren't even in shape or aren't even bodybuilders or trained, and these guys got like huge calves. It's like, and you can tell they don't really train them. It's just genetically they just got these massive calves.
They're kind
So
of either one way or the other with calves. So you've either got
yeah, exactly. So, but like I said, if there's any one weak body part, I'll take that. Trust me. I think when you turn around, and you're hitting the back poses, I think the judges are more looking for your hamstring, your glutes, and your back, and not so much the calves.
So as I've mentioned, you're currently with 5% Nutrition, Rich's
Yep.
company. How long have you been with them for?
I've been with them since just earlier this year, so like around February.
All right.
So pretty fresh still, but ever since teaming up with Rich, I've been traveling around. I've done a bunch of expos with him and whatnot, and I don't know how popular it is over there. He's pretty popular everywhere else, and I know he was just in Body Power, but he's been the best guy to have worked with. I've always respected him even before I got sponsored by him because like a lot of people respect him. He tells it how it is and whatnot, and he doesn't beat around the bush, and that's exactly how he is in real life because I've been hanging out with him enough, through these expos and all that kind of stuff, and that's the way you see him in the videos is the way he is in person. And because this is all new to me, I've never been sponsored, I've never been to even these expos before, and to be there and look at all the other booths, with some big names, and I see his lineups are just insane. Like people waiting, an hour and a half, and the crazy thing is most of these people aren't even there to buy anything. They're just there to meet him and take a picture with him. Yeah. Well, the thing is too is also Rich gives each person, each fan his dedicated time. I see like a lot of these people, they're just like robots, just handshake, boom, quick smile, done. Rich actually, hey, what's up? He gives each person a little bit of his time, and they ask him a question. He's not going to shrug him off, and that's what's so great about him. And it's amazing because he's there from like start to finish. He doesn't take no breaks. He doesn't leave the booth. He eats right there, and it's just honestly, it's just crazy seeing that. But that's what it takes, and that's why people love him.
Just saying about 5%. I know Rich doesn't believe in using protein powders. That's why he said he'll never bring one out. Do you personally use them, or?
I use them a little bit. I don't depend on what Rich's thing is mainly is don't depend on these things.
Yeah.
He doesn't say don't. I don't think he really says don't use them, or maybe he has before. But I think his main theory is basically just don't rely on them. You eat real food. These are supplements, and that's what I try to tell people too. When they ask me, do you take this? Yeah, I do take it, but I don't try to take it in place of food. I'll take it when I can, or if I'm in a hurry or whatever. But I try to take in real food, and it's true. Real food is better. And like he says, and like I say too, these are supplements. You're supposed to supplement, your daily, intake with these things, not rely on them. And that's I think the main thing he's trying to reiterate is don't rely on these things. Just supplement with them. You know what I mean? Real food is still better, and it's true.
Yeah, it's true. We get a lot of just thinking that they have to rely on the protein, they have to rely on the creatine, they have to rely on.
Yeah, it's the funniest thing. And like right after the workout, I got to get in that shake right away, or I'm gonna start losing muscle. You know what I mean? Like a meal is totally just as good. You know what I mean? You don't have to go home crazy down that shake or whatnot. You know what I mean? Yeah. If that makes you feel better, then so be it. But you can just have a meal. There's nothing wrong with that too. I believe the same thing too. I used to rely a lot on shakes, but I've noticed ever since eating more real food that my body has gotten a lot better. I've grown better by eating a lot more food. Like I said, I used to have way more shakes per day. Now, I just have like one of my meals is basically oatmeal with a couple scoops of protein. I just like it. It's just a favorite meal of mine, and but before would be way more of those, you know what I mean? But I just do that one. That's just my daily ritual. I like to have that, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, what would you say for tips for newcomers to the sport? Would you say stick mainly to whole foods and train to failure?
Yeah, exactly. My main tips to younger guys is form first. There's way too many guys putting on way too much weight on these exercises, these machines and everything, and with horrible form. And you're not going to get anywhere but sent to the hospital, honestly. Like, you're just going to get injured, and that's the biggest tip I can give these guys. The weight will come. Get the form down first. The weight will come gradually, honestly. I'm all about lifting weight, trust me. I'm the first one to say you got to lift some good heavy-ass weight. But it's lift heavy-ass weight while using good form. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I try to preach to these kids is practice the good form, and then the weight will come, not the weight first, or else you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to get hurt. trust me, the weight will come. Like if you see a lot of my videos, whether it's I'm benching one plate or I'm benching 5 or 4, it's the exact same form. Nice control, boom, boom. That's the way it's done. You don't load it up and start, banging away, and that's not how it works. It's just way too much momentum and stuff. I do agree with a little bit of forced reps at the end to try to squeeze out the most out of every set. Yeah, I'm a big believer of failure. Big believer of failure. Whether some people agree with me or not, I think you need to take every set to failure. But a positive failure. Failure on your own. You don't need a guy doing, helping you do 3 negatives after you're already done. When you're done on the bench and the guy's helped you with that last rep, you don't need to do another 2 more. I'm sorry. You're done. The guy's going to be doing most of the work for you. So, push yourself. Always push yourself. Eat lots of good food, and enjoy yourself too. When you're young and you're trying to grow, enjoy yourself. Eat tons of food, and learn your body type. That's a big thing. Like I had to learn my body type, and it took me a little while too, where I realized I have to eat very clean, or else I'll get sloppy. That's just my body type. Some guys need 3-4 cheat meals a week to keep size on or put size on. It's just you gotta find what works for you, and that's the thing. Everybody's always, oh, what do you do? What do you take? What do you know? How do you do this, do that? Well, I can tell you, but everybody's different. All body types are different. Some guys are ectomorphs, some guys are endomorphs. You know what I mean? So it's really you can't just go by that, and that's the problem with people nowadays. You know what I mean? You got to find what works. Try something for a couple weeks, see how you respond. See how you look in the mirror. Great. If it's good, okay, slowly add in, some calories. Don't do any crazy drastic changes. Also, before I forget too, I'm also a very big believer of intro workout shakes. That's, sipping something during your workout. I find that that's a huge mistake with a lot of these up and coming guys that are really serious about training, and I see them and they're drinking water. And I just don't understand why. Like, why are you drinking water? You're giving the most anabolic opportunity when you're breaking down that muscle in the gym. You're creating such an anabolic opportunity. That's the best time to drive those nutrients into the muscle cells. So how you do that is you drink a shake or a big jug with some carbs, some type of carbs with some BCAAs, some aminos in there as well, and even some creatine. And you just flush the muscle with all those nutrients, and that's the best time to do it. The old, ideology was, oh, wait till after the workout's done to have your shake and carbs and whatnot. Well, the whole thing nowadays is why wait till after when you've already broken down, when you can pretty well really start the rebuilding process during your workout. That's one thing I always try to tell people right away. I ask people that right away when I meet them. I'm like, oh, what are you taking intro workout? Oh, nothing. And right away I shake my head and I'm just like, I don't understand why. And that's another good way of, in order to grow, we need to be in a caloric surplus. Well, the best way to add calories is right there during your workout. You can slam down 50 or 100 gram of carbs easily during the workout, and it's going to be used for a good. It's going to be used efficiently, and there's no chance of it getting stored as fat. But you've just taken in another 50 gram or 100 gram of carbs, so it's easy, and it's another easy way to get in more carbs instead of having that 100 gram of carbs and throw, at another time of the day where there's a good chance it might get stored as fat. So that's something I highly recommend as well. Is those intro workout shakes? They're very popular nowadays, and I'm very surprised how enough people haven't taken on to it. To be honest.
Yeah, I started using intro workout shakes probably about a year ago, and straight away noticed that I could train a lot harder for
Exactly. You're training harder. Also, the amount of time you train also relates to the amount of carbs. So, like, for example, if you're only training an hour, then you might just need, 25, 50 carbs. If you're training an hour and a half, then maybe 50, 75, and so on, right?
Yeah.
But, it allows you to train harder. It starts replenishing your glycogen right away. When you take that with a certain amount of BCAAs, what it does is it's a transporter. It helps carry those BCAAs into the muscle cells. So it can start the rebuilding process right there. You have to take advantage of that opportunity. When we're breaking down the muscle tissue, it's a catabolic thing, but you're creating an anabolic opportunity. If you get what I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, take advantage of every opportunity that you can.
Exactly. So you go in there, you train hard, and you start feeding that muscle while you're breaking down that muscle, and you sip on that thing throughout the whole thing, and then you don't even need that post-workout shake like how these guys are doing nowadays, because you've basically just fed the muscle the carbs, and the nutrients. So then you just wait a half hour, and just go have a nice solid meal. Basically, that's what I do. The food's the best for you, but yeah, that's definitely one thing I have highly recommend. Intro workout shake, very, very, very important for these guys that are very serious about training. Like, don't even have to be a bodybuilder. You're just into training. You should be taking something like that. Period. Some kind of fast-acting carbs with some BCAAs. Plain. That's it. That's all you basically really need.
Yeah. Well, yes, I've just got a text through from one of my friends who I told I was interviewing you, and he's just asked me to ask for your arm routine. You talk.
My arm. Okay, yeah, but basically my arm routine. I never train arms on their own. But I do train all body parts twice a week. I didn't do that all my whole training wise. I've been doing that for I think about the last year maybe now, where I train all body parts twice a week. So I'm basically hitting arms twice a week, but they don't get, I don't hit them on their own. So I do biceps after back. I do triceps after chest. Yeah, 3 sets of each exercise, and that's it. But again, to failure. People want to know the arm routine because I grew big arms. Honestly, it's genetic. Genetic is huge. When I first got into training, I even did less sets. I used to do like 2 exercises for biceps after back day, and triceps, two exercises after after chest day, and only once a week I would only train them. So it's just something genetically, it grew fast, and so that's pretty much it. But the only thing that has stayed constant, and it probably has helped over time, is I do a lot of stretching of my triceps when I train my triceps in between sets. Because I'm a big believer of stretching. You have to stretch the muscle fascia, which is that sheath that stays around the muscle. Well, that kind of prevents the muscle from growing. So if you can stretch that, then the muscle and the blood can make grow it, pump into there and make it a lot bigger. So that's one thing I have been doing ever since I have started training. Whether that's helped, I definitely for sure it must have helped some. I don't know if that's a huge reason why my arms are so big, but I've definitely done that from day one. I suggest that to everybody. Biceps, I for some reason I don't stretch too crazy in between sets. I will do it at the end of workouts sometimes, but I do notice that when I do hit triceps, I do stretch them in between sets all the time, just to really stretch that muscle fascia. Training wise, and also with arms or anything, I'm a big believer of full range of motion. I'm a full range of motion guy. That means taking the exercise through the full range of motion. I see a lot of these guys with their triceps, they're doing a lot of these exercises, especially push downs, and they're coming up halfway and then pushing down again. Well, no, the arm can come up all the way up, without bringing the elbows up, of course. So you get that full stretch and all the way down. And I see guys just load up the stack with too much weight, and they just do these little half reps where they come up half and then push down. Well, all they're doing is locking out. The exercises, the arm's not meant to do that. It's meant to come all the way up, all the way down. And that's a big philosophy with all my training, is full range of motion. Straight up, straight back. As far if you don't have any injuries that can prevent you, that's the way I am. Squats, all the way up, all the way down. There's a lot of these people nowadays that are into this constant tension stuff, this, that. Hey, if that works for you, great. But for me, what's worked with me has always been full range of motion. I believe you need to be strong throughout the whole movement. You don't want no weak parts, like guys benching. A lot of guys benching, they don't come down all the way to their chest, they come down halfway. Well, what's going to happen one day when they come a little bit lower than they're used to, and the muscles aren't used to taking that load? Well, they're going to get stuck. They're going to get caught down there. So you got to practice and go all the way down, all the way up. And that's just the way I've always been, and that's a big thing for triceps as well. And that's another thing too, is a lot of these guys focus way too much on the biceps, while the triceps take up 2/3 of your arm. So you should be really hitting those more than, not more or less, but you should be hitting everything, hard, but especially your triceps. You got to really focus on those. Guys are, I see them focusing way too much on their biceps and curling this, that. Well, the tricep takes up 2/3 of your arm, so don't you think you should focus more on that? You know what I mean? Really emphasize on your triceps. That's going to build up your arm more than your biceps, believe it or not.
So as you're saying about the full range and form is better than weight, because no one cares on stage how much you lift. After all, it's what you look like. So
Yeah, exactly. It's what you look like, and that's the thing. Nobody cares if you squat this, that, and or lift that. You do need to lift a certain amount of weight to stimulate the muscle. I'm totally for that. But I'm a full range of motion guy, and like I said, when you see some of my videos, well, I don't have any videos of me of repping one plate, but when I'm benching, whether it's warming up with one plate or whether I'm doing 4 plates, it's all the way up, all the way down. It's always the same. It's always controlled. And that's just the way it is. And you do that over time. You keep building up your strength, and you'll be strong as hell, and you'll be nice and safe. And just too many guys just loading up way too much weight and horrible form, and you're not going to grow like that. I'm sorry. Also, in case I missed it, to go back to my exercise, my training ideology, is I'm also a big believer of varying your reps. So for me, like on a lot of compound movements, squat, bench press, overhead press, I really like to hit the compounds first when I'm nice and fresh, when you're your strongest, and I like to go as low as 6 reps for my first set to try to hit those, hit those more strength fibers and keep your strength there. And so what I'll do is I'll hit, 6 reps on my first set. I'll back off the weight a little bit for my second set. Then I'll be hitting, the 8 to 10 range. And then I'll drop the weight even a little bit more, and then I'll hit the 10 to 12 range. That way you're kind of hitting all that whole rep range, you know what I mean? You don't want to just stick with this. And even once in a while, I'll test myself, and, I'll do a 1 rep max on the bench. Not too often, but once in a while when you're feeling strong and you want to test yourself. You need to shock the body sometimes, you know what I mean? I'm not saying do it all the time, but every 4 or 6 weeks, go for that lift, you know what I mean? Push yourself, hit those different fibers. But usually I don't like to go less than 6 reps. That way I don't need a spotter. I know if it's a bad week, and if I only get 4 or 5 reps, I'm still okay to, rack the bar by myself. When you start going any lower than that, then you got to start depending on spotters and this and that. And I usually don't like to do that. I usually train a lot on my own. So, but I'm definitely a big believer of varying up the reps, even as high. And when it comes to legs, my lowest set will be usually 6 to 8 reps, and then I'll work my way up all the way up to 25 reps even. And those 25 rep sets, those are the killers, and that's what really, blows those legs apart. And I really believe in high reps for the legs as well. But again, I like to vary it up, and I still like to hit those low reps too, because I just believe you're hitting those different kind of fibers, right? So it's good to mix it up. And just like anything in general, just like training in general, it's good to vary it up. Hit different machines, hit different, hit different things. You know what I mean? That's the problem is a lot of these guys, they're going in there, they're doing the same exercise week after week, day after day, and they're like, oh, my chest isn't growing or this, that. Well, try something different. If it ain't working, try something different. And you have to stimulate the muscles in different ways. That's why with my program, I love it. I'm hitting my body parts twice a week. Well, by doing that, I'm able to do 2 different, I'm able to do two totally different rounds of exercises per week, where I'm hitting the muscle from totally different angles. For example, chest. Day 1 would be starting with incline barbell, and then day 2 we'd be starting off with flat barbell. It works out perfect like that. You get 2 growing phases in a week versus 1. But in order to do this, your nutrition has to be down packed. Your intra workout protocol has to be down packed in order for you to be recovering in time for the next session. But I find this works out great. I don't like to train more than 3 days in a row. I believe your body needs some rest. So my split is always set in stone. I'll train 3 days, and then I'll take a day off after leg day, because leg day is pretty intense. And then I'll go 3 days, day off, 2 days, and then another day off. So 2 days off a week. My schedule is pretty well set in stone unless I'm traveling, and that's just the way it is. So if you can do something like that where it's set like that, then my system works so great. You recover in time, ready for the next session. The more sessions you can fit in, the more growth opportunities you get, the bigger you're gonna get. Sorry if I'm rambling on a lot.
That's fine. That's what we're here for. I'm just gonna say one last question for you.
Yep.
I'm gonna take the Olympia this year.
Well, I think Phil's gonna take it.
Think?
Yeah, Phil or Big Ramy. Ramy's looking pretty sick. I don't know if Ramy could come in condition. I just like the pack. I like the package Phil brings. I like the package he brings better than Kai. Kai's never really come in 100% conditioned yet. He's big and freaky, but I think just Phil just has everything all around. But it'll be tough. We'll see. We're gonna have to see. Like I said, Ramy's definitely this latest pictures of him is just crazy. It's ridiculous. 300 pounds on stage like that is just, unheard of.
It was great to have you join us,
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
and best of luck at the Nationals.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And we'll keep an eye on your progress.
Sounds good, brother. All the best.